10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 124. Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 124 of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. Hope you have had an awesome week, and I'm really excited to welcome you into another episode. As always, we just want to thank you so much for tuning in each and every week, and we hope that we are bringing you some value. A couple of housekeeping things before we get into the episode. Thank you so much to all of our patrons that have signed up to support the podcast, get all the PDFs, and just be awesome members of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson community. In case you don't know, you can get PDFs to every single episode that we've ever put out by going over to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, and clicking on one of the Patreon links. You go over there, you pledge us $3 a month, and you get access to all kinds of cool stuff. Stuff that's going to keep you busy for a long time, considering that we are on episode 124. There's a lot of stuff to work on over there, a lot of PDFs, a lot of old episodes to dive into. So I wanted to give a big shout out to the people that have signed up this week. Thank you to Roberto and Scott for becoming part of the Patreon family. We really appreciate you pledging some of your hard-earned money every month to us, and we promise we won't disappoint you. All right, let's get into today's episode. So the past couple of weeks, I've been digging into some old books that I want to revisit, some stuff that I had worked on in the past, and I decided it was time for a fresh look at some of the stuff that I had practiced when I was a lot younger, because I always feel like when I do that, I gain something else because I'm looking at these materials in a different light. You know, I'm in a different headspace. I'm in a different place in my playing, so I really benefit from going back and revisiting stuff that I've worked on in the past. So one of these books was the Oliver Nelson pattern book. Now, if you don't know about this book, it is designed for saxophonists, but any instrument can use this book, and it has some really fantastic patterns in it that will really help your technique on your instrument. And that's mostly what I use it for. When I dive into these pattern books, I'm not really trying to gain a bunch of material that I can actually play over chord changes, but sometimes I discover things that do directly relate to playing over changes. Most of the time, however, I'm just trying to increase my technique, and I'm trying to help my ears out, and generally just use these patterns as a technical exercise. But there's this one exercise that I stumbled across in this Oliver Nelson book that I must have not remembered from years ago, but I thought of a really, really cool application as I was practicing through this, and it did directly relate to playing over chord changes, playing over tunes. So I wanted to kind of present that to you and explain my thinking behind how I'm turning this kind of very simple pattern into something that I'm actually going to be playing over tunes at this point. So the exercise is very, very simple. He wrote an exercise that starts with minor chords, and basically what it's doing is it's doing this pattern that goes 5, 3, 2, 1 over a minor chord. So if you're in the key of D minor, you're going to play 5, 3, 2, 1, A, F, E, and D. And then what the pattern does is it plays this 5, 3, 2, 1, but it descends through the keys in whole steps. And it does a pattern of 4 whole steps, and then it starts on the next one a half step lower than that. Now, I realize what I just said was very, very confusing, but think about it this way. So if you started on D minor, you'd play 5, 4, 3, 1. 5, 3, 2, 1 in D minor. Then you would do it in C minor. Then you would do it in B flat minor, and then in A flat minor. So there's your 4 keys a whole step apart. And then you would jump back up and you would start on C sharp minor. You play C sharp, B, A, and G minor. And then it just continues down through the instrument in that pattern. Really, really difficult exercise actually to play at a fast tempo, and really good for the ears to hear these sequences in whole steps in these larger structures descending by half steps. So let me play it for you because I realize that trying to explain it can be pretty confusing. I think if you'll hear it, you will understand it a little bit better. So here's the original exercise from the book. So it's kind of a cool sound. It's a pretty basic exercise, but a really good thing to practice. So what I started thinking was, okay, this could actually be a really cool structure to play over a cadence. So to play over a 2-5-1 or some other kind of cadence, because what it's going to do is it's going to kind of move independently of the changes. And that's a sound that I really, really like. So just taking a structure and playing it in a bunch of different keys, regardless of kind of what chord changes you're actually playing it over, because really all that matters is where it resolves. So if we can work backwards from a resolution point, we can really utilize this material, and it sounds pretty out. It sounds pretty cool. It's kind of this really awesome mixture between really inside stuff and really outside stuff. So let me explain what I mean. So if we took a 2-5 to C, all right, and we started this structure, it's also really nice because it fits perfectly over 2 measures, which is the length of most cadences. So if I took the D minor chord and I started by playing 5, 3, 2, 1 in D minor, and then I started that cycle. So I'm playing D minor, C minor, B flat minor, A flat minor over this 2-5. I actually resolve perfectly out of this onto the 5th of the C major chord, of the 1 chord. And I do get this awesome mixture of inside-outside kind of sounds, right? So if we start on D minor over a D minor chord, it's going to be very, very inside. But then C minor over a D minor chord is pretty out, right? Then B flat minor and A flat minor over the G7 give us this really cool kind of altered sound. So the ear gravitates towards hearing the actual structure regardless of the individual notes that I'm playing within the structure. So this is your first exercise on your PDF this week, is the one that I just explained. So I'm going to do this cycle of descending whole step minor patterns over this 2-5, starting on D minor and then working my way to that resolution point on the 1 chord. Let's check out how this sounds. So it's actually really an awesome sound. The tension builds and builds and builds until it releases right on the downbeat of the 1 chord, which is just fantastic. I mean, so something that I was working on just for technical reasons, now all of a sudden I can just all of a sudden put this over a tune and it sounds great. I always get super excited about that. So then I got to thinking, all right, if that works, there must be some other structures that work as well. So the resolution point on that one was the 5th of the 1 chord. So what if I worked backwards from the 3rd of the 1 chord? So I want to resolve on an E, which means that I'm going to have to come into that E by way of half step, right? So by way of F, which means my final chord is going to be an F minor over that G7. So that means I'm going to work backwards from my F minor 7 and go up by whole steps. So backwards, it's going to be F minor, G minor, A minor, B minor, which means I'm going to be starting over my D minor 7 chord with a B minor outline. That's pretty out. And again, the notes don't really work. I'm playing a bunch of major thirds over a minor chord, but that's not really the point. The point is hearing this descending structure. So even though that's a pretty offensive note, it's going to be made less offensive by the time I get to the resolution point. So here's example number 2, which I think you'll find a lot more crunchy. So this is on your PDF, the second line down. Check this one out. So the beginning of that one is super, super outsounding, very, very crunchy. But by the end of the line, it kind of makes sense. I don't know if you feel that way or if it's just me, but I'm always kind of searching for these new sounds over a seemingly simple exercise. All right, so the third one is I decided to make the resolution point the major 7 on the C major 7 chord. So again, I'm going to work backwards. If I'm resolving to a B natural, the note I need to come from is a C natural. So then I'm going to work backwards: C minor, D minor, E minor, and F sharp minor. So again, this one starts out extremely, extremely dissonant, and then this one kind of stays pretty dissonant because these keys are not your typical things that you would play over D minor 7 or G7. But again, it all just kind of releases when we come to that 1 chord. So here's the third example on your PDF for this week. This is resolving to the 7th of the 1 chord. So that one sounds pretty cool too. I think I might actually like that one the best. Although I do also really like example number 2. So I'm probably going to practice a whole bunch of those. But this is just an example of a way that I think you should be thinking when you're practicing stuff like this. Most of the time, I'm not going to find a practical application to a technical exercise, but some of the time you just find pure gold. So if you're always thinking about things from that angle, you will find some amazing stuff that you can directly apply to, your everyday life as a musician, where you can actually take that knowledge and move it right on stage and actually have it come out in your playing. So make sure that you're thinking like this all the time, and you will come up with some really cool original stuff. I'm sharing this with you, but I don't know how many other people have ever thought of this. I'm sure there's a bunch of them out there, but I think it gives me a little bit of a unique sound if I take a simple exercise and I figure out how to apply it for myself instead of just always doing what everybody else is doing. That's really how you develop a personal sound. So think about this, grab the sheet, really dissect all of the stuff on the PDF from this week, and really think about how these notes fit with the changes, how the structure moves. I'm sure that you can come up with a bunch of other really cool stuff if you really think about it enough and you do enough trial and error. You'll be able to come up with some really cool stuff for yourself. Okay? All right, so make sure you go over to Patreon. You can find the PDF there. This is a fantastic one to actually have in your hands and study this week. And thank you so much to everybody who's already contributed to the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode, and we will see you next week with 2 brand new episodes. All right, we'll talk to you soon. Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye.